Sounds like a plan.
All right. Let's go ahead and call our meeting to order, and let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance real quick, if you don't mind. I'll start it off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Crystal, when you're ready, we'll take a roll call, please.
I know that they were working with the AV over at the Leaper Center today, and she was having to change her Zoom accounts around. So let's give her a minute and make sure she can get it. If not, I will go on ahead and take roll. We'll give her a minute.
Absolutely,
or so.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay. Trustee Gator,
Here.
Trustee Jerome,
Here.
Trustee Kenny,
Present.
Trustee McDonald,
Here.
Trustee Whitehouse,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Here.
Mayor Hammond.
here. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight that we need to be aware of? Okay, I take that as a no. Any conflicts of interest that anyone needs to bring up? Okay, good. All right, we're gonna move on to item B. Right now, B1, this is a public comment time. If the public wishes to comment on items that are not on the agenda, please raise your hand in the chat box, state your name and address where you're from, and we'll give you 3 minutes to share your piece.
Mayor Hammond, I see no hands raised at this time.
Okay, we'll close the public comment portion. Move on to presentations. First presentation tonight, Wellington Main Street's program. It's an annual report from Kallie Cooper, Executive Director, Wellington Main Street. Kallie, you got the floor.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Good, there you are.
Crystal, am I able to share my screen? Hi, I am. Perfect.
Yes, you are.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Like Crystal said, Kallie Cooper here with the Wellington Main Street program. And tonight I'm actually going to be presenting our Wellington Main Street program annual report for 2020. So rather than our sort of quarterly report that takes a look at the last 3 months, this will actually give you a snapshot of the program's impact over the last 12 months and highlight some of the economic impacts on how our program supports the development of downtown Wellington. In 2020, we were able to raise $6,465 in sponsorship for downtown projects and events and logged over 1,700 volunteer hours. 106 of those were new volunteers that we registered this year, and we logged over 500 hours dedicated to COVID-19 response. As some of you know, and some of you may not know, we are generously supported by the Colorado Main Street program and the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. They provide us with consultant services, ongoing training, and financial contribution. So this year we leveraged $25,250 in funding through these services to support not only our program, but our work in the community. Additionally, and this is the number that we really love to see, is over $78,000 was invested in improvements to both residential and commercial buildings within the Main Street program area. This is both in private and public. This is both private and public investment. So those come directly off of our assessor reports, and we take a look at how much money was spent in just our program area. And so that is where those numbers come from. Additionally, we invested $17,287 in downtown beautification projects. And those went towards the projects that you see on your screen: our Greetings from Wellington mural, the new historic train depot landscaping, our annual color, and the welcome to downtown banners that were designed by the Main Street program and Casey Graphics. One of the major goals of the Main Street program is to increase awareness of the downtown business community and support historic preservation. So we took a big focus this year on doing that virtually because we had to, and increasing our social media presence. And by investing and engaging the public in that avenue, we actually increased our media presence by 31% this year, which is a huge jump from what we've done in the past. And this really is our way of sharing consistent information and providing an outlet for business promotion. Although many of our events were canceled this year, as you know, due to the pandemic, we were able to host one of our largest events that we've ever been able to do, and hosted 2,500 people for our Trick or Treat Down Main Street event, which was phenomenal. I think we had some great response from the people who attended, and it really was a wonderful achievement, not only for our organization, but for our partnership with the Wellington Chamber and the town of Wellington. We also continued our Front Porch Friday happy hour events to virtually showcase local businesses and connect with previously unreached community members. Obviously, these are just a part of the larger impact of the Main Street program. This year, we provided countless hours of support for our small business community. We were also granted the prestigious title of Graduate Main Street Program, and were featured in a nationally syndicated television series. As we head into this year, we've already launched and started planning for our summer events. Our Summer Farmers Market and Wellorama both had our first meetings of the year, and we're really excited to get into the weeds of planning those events and how we will be able to pull them off this year, either with or without restrictions. So that's where we're at, and I am here to answer any of your questions about this report, about our summer events, or anything that we're currently working on.
So Kallie, when you mentioned the $578,000 worth of investment downtown, how much of that was CARES Act funding? Was that portionate to that? Was a portion of that?
Actually, none of that is CARES Act funding. That is private investment into home improvements or business improvements. This was private investment into patio extensions and various different projects, but that includes both residential and commercial buildings.
Well, that's a phenomenal number.
Absolutely.
To have done here during all this kind of restrictions and lockdowns. I mean, what do you attribute that to?
I think, and I don't necessarily attribute our program to making this direct impact, but one of the wonderful parts of creating a vibrant downtown is that the residents and businesses that are within that downtown, when they see that there is investment from community members, then there's usually a catalyst that happens, that they start to invest in their own properties, and they start to take ownership of those properties, improve them, make them part of that downtown community. And it really is a snowball effect that happens when you invest in your downtown.
Well, I just think that's a major infusion of investment on its own there without, what we've been doing. So I really am impressed with that, very much so. So that's good news. And all of the other things you've been doing just phenomenal job. I really appreciate the report. Board members, you have anything to add or comment on?
appreciate all the work that the Kallie especially, but the Main Streets program as a whole have done. I remember back when all of this madness started with COVID-19, Kallie was one of the first people to step up in the incident command system to try and help with getting things situated for the businesses. So really just appreciate all that you guys have done for the community throughout this year. It's been great.
I agree. We have a lot to owe the Main Street program this last year. Such a significant part of our community, and I'm so very thankful for all your efforts and everything that's happened. The trick or treat down Main Street was amazing and reminded me, even though it was a very safe setting and COVID centric and careful, but it reminded me of what Wellington is that we missed. So I appreciate that you brought that back to us during such difficult times and took such effort. And you were just so careful to make sure that we can meet all the requirements to have such a special event. So thank you very much. And I know a lot of people were together to do that, and there was a ton of volunteers. So I think it was awesome. So keep doing what you're doing. I love it. Thank you.
Other comments? Kallie, thank you so much for all the work you've been doing. You're really standing out. Okay. And
Thank
we
you.
take notice. We take notice.
Thank
Okay.
you, everybody. I appreciate that.
You bet. Keep doing what you're doing. Let us know what we can do. Always.
I will. It should be a big year for us. It should be a big year for our program. Like I said, we're already starting with our summer events, so stay tuned for more information, and we'll be in touch soon.
Very much looking forward to it. Summer events. Let's hope it's opened up with a splash. Okay. Move on to, we got another presentation. It's a quarterly treasuries report. Judy, are you on?
I'm on. Good evening. I'm going to share my
Well, before
screen.
you start, Judy, I want to say something. I really appreciate you being here tonight. I know you've got some family troubles and issues. So thank you so much
Thank
for putting in
you.
your time here. We're not going to take up too much of it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet. So go ahead.
So Crystal, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see me?
Not yet, Judy.
Let's try this again. We have a small snafu. We have a PowerPoint that it sounds like it maybe possibly did not make it into the packet. So how about now, Crystal? Do you,
Looks like it's coming up.
okay. Maybe?
Did you click on the PowerPoint presentation, Judy?
I did, and it says I'm sharing. Well, this is no good. Let's see here. Perhaps I'll try a new share. You're not seeing it it's not popping up?
Nope.
I'll shoot a bug. Let's see here.
Here we go.
Are we up?
Yeah, there we go.
Excellent. So this evening, and I mean, this tags really well with the Kallie's presentation. Looking at the year in a review, and certainly towards the end of my report, I want to talk a little bit about sales tax. And so it will tag well with some of the information you just heard. So as we look at the end of the year, an unusual year for certain. So on the general fund, overall, we ended really well. So our revenues, we had budgeted at 6.8, we came in at 7.8, so we were up 964,000 on that. Our expenditures, we had said 7.6 and we ended at 5.9. So again, in the proper direction, we ended at 1.7 million favorably. So you add those two together and we're at $2.7 million better off than what we thought. Originally, your budget for 2020 anticipated using 838,000 of fund balance to get the job done, and we did not need to do that. So not only did we not do that, but we are going to be passing 1.8 million back into the general fund. And that becomes really important as we start looking at our town hall and some of the things. And we always want to be thinking smart as far as not, maybe getting some of these smaller debts pieces that we're going to be trying to clear up. So always having a good idea of where we're at and how we got there, that's important. So, and this evening, I'm not going to go through the entire treasurer's report. I wanted to hit the highlighted areas for us. And as we move through these quarterly reports, I want to make them a little bit more meaningful, that we have information. So when we get to budget, we know why we're talking about. And I'm not in any way trying to pass over our parks or our recs or the drainage fund, but for right now, what is taking up our time and your time and is really, really impactful for us is our water and sewer. So those are the other funds that I wanted to hit tonight. Okay, here. So on our water fund, this fund ended well as well. And so we budgeted right at 7 million, came in at 7.9. And the biggest part of that is our raw water fees are we collected. So you need to, on the bottom part of that, I did put a note on there that almost 700,000 of that will be going in, and it's a restricted revenue. So it's not that we can go spend that on other things, but those came with the building permits. And then on the budgeted expenditures, and I took capital out of this because capital really are, we'll look at those projects individually. So we said we were going to be at 4.7 and we underspent at 3.3. So again, that is good news. And we get to take those funds and move them into our fund balance as we move forward. And with everything that is on our plate in the water department, that again, both of those are moving in a great direction. $360,000 of that is coming out of water sales. And so it's important to realize, I mean, these are good numbers, but they also came from, the tap fees, the water, the raw water, and the water sales. And so this year we had nearly 300 taps that we brought on, and we are limiting that next year. And so that is important to realize, because when we ratchet those down, we're not going to see these numbers, and we certainly can't count on them again as a repeat performance. And so why that becomes really important is for the next 3 years, we want to make sure that what we budget is sustainable. We want to make sure that we're being very financially responsible. And when you see these numbers, they look great. And what you don't want to do is give yourself a false sense of security, and we just randomly budget 3 to 5% on top of some number without really understanding what the foundation of that was. And so we will not be seeing 300 building permits in any given year. That is what we've maxed out, or that's what we've said. Given the capacity out at the current water plant, we will limit those to 300 total over the next 3 years. So then we're going to move on to the sewer fund. And this one, it was favorable, but slightly. I mean, so our numbers were very close to where we budgeted. So our revenues came in at about 132,000 higher. Expenditures were underspent by about 150. And again, I'm putting just these three funds in context. So as we move forward, and if we talk about this quarterly, it's not like, they kind of kid you when you first come on board that you're drinking out of a water hose or a fire hydrant, so to speak, trying to get all the information. And so as we move to the budgeting cycle and we start talking about these things, and we're going to have some debt inside the sewer fund and the water fund, having a good base and having had time to talk about this and think about it before we get there I think it will be very helpful as we get there. Let's see, my little guy will go down. So when we start looking at this, again, all of the pieces are important, but we have almost 82% of all of our revenue coming out of the general fund is coming from your tax and impacts fees. And that's really, we want to visit that. And so if we don't know what was happening, we never thought none of us have ever lived through a pandemic before. We had events, the 9/11, 2008 came. These are the numbers that you want to watch very closely on a monthly basis. This is the stuff, this is the information that if we look at it, it should never come as a surprise by the time we get to the budget. It's not to say licensing and permitting is not important, or some of our fines and forfeitures. They certainly shape the community that we want to live in, and it makes it, part of who we are and the structure. But that number could go away completely before. If you see movement in that top and what I have in yellow, those are the critical pieces that we absolutely have to have our hands around as we move through the year. And we should never get to the budget and it be a surprise. Go down one here. So I want to talk about sales tax for just a second and put it into context. So I think Crystal's driving here. So I'm not sure, as when I came on board, your budget was well underway, and I didn't see or hear a lot of conversations. We were very, very focused on the water fund, of course, but we didn't really talk about sales tax. And so I don't know if everyone actually realizes it, but it is the single largest source of revenue for the town. And so we want to watch that as a month. And so going back and just knowing what are we talking about. So in the town of Wellington, there's 3% that is collected, and that is collected by the state of Colorado, and then it is remitted to us on a monthly basis. And so currently 2% of those funds remain in the general fund, and then that 1% is split between your streets and your parks department. And so the food for home consumption, we do, and that is really important for our municipality as a contributing for what we, the support of what we spend money on, how we fix our streets, etc. And so there's been a big change that has kind of shifted starting in 2018. So sales tax last year increased about 28%, and that's just over 19. So what I wanted to do is give us a good understanding of what does that mean. And so I went back and I looked at our raw data, and I'm looking at, so e-commerce is almost 11% of that. And so then you have to go, okay, so again, what is our foundation and what can we build on? And so as we look at that, in November of 18, big change for Colorado. And so they, all this legislation came out. It started in January. It actually took till about November when they finally got something to pass. And it was requiring the collection of sales tax online. And so I'm sure we all saw it. We used to order something from Amazon. Here comes your dog food, and there was no sales tax on it. And then suddenly there was. Well, when they passed that during the year of 2019, they grandfathered in a lot of, so if you had less than 200 transactions or you didn't remit $100,000, you were allowed this grace period. And so that was kind of phased in over 19. And so the year 2020 was really the first year that we saw what does this mean to us, right? So certainly, as you look through there, we don't have an Ann Taylor's, but if someone orders from Ann Taylor's, we'll see, a return that comes to us. And so we want to make sure that before we go in and we budget and we just randomly start budgeting, is it 3%? Is it 5%? We say, we had a 28% increase. And my question when I came on was, I went back through the raw data for 16 years. What does my foundation look like? I want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position that we're saying, okay, if this e-commerce goes down or goes away, or people, go back into the mall, that we've put ourselves in a position where we're not going to meet what we're projecting. So I think Crystal or Patty are driving. So next screen, I'm going. So for our budget here, originally we budgeted this is in the general fund. Again, it's the 2/3. So we said in 2020 we were going to bring in just a tick over $2 million. And if you look down below, we actually came in at 2.6. And so if 2/3 of that is going to your general fund, that's $1.3 million, or 30% of everything that we budget in the general fund. And so it actually turned out to be closer to 40%, because that number, the 600,000, and of course that was split, again, 2/3 going to the general fund. And our next slide. So when we get these raw data, the raw data that comes in, you'll say, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. Well, it's really, it's interesting. There's probably around 3,500. It's just this great big spreadsheet. It's like a dump, and you get it in there and you run it through, and then you want to start sorting it out to a meaningful information. And so you get rid of any of the, the zero returns, and then you go through. So, and I picked randomly the month of November because it was one of the last ones I worked on. So 2,052 vendors remitted sales tax to us in the month of November. And for that number was $219,000. That was total. So then you start doing these sorts again. And because of how we are, and there's huge confidentiality agreements that we sign with the state of Colorado when they give us this information, we can't report food for home consumption. We don't have, you would have to have, 3 to 4 grocery stores before you could, give that information out. Because if we just gave that, a single return, someone can back into that and then they would know their gross sales. We can't do that. So then you say, can we report on, retail restaurants, and can you break it down to restaurants with bars, restaurants without bars? And so I will continue to try to look at meaningful ways to share this information with you. But I think it's interesting that your top 10 is what I came up with, is if we watch those top 10 and put those into a category, that's what I think, that's the information that I will start sharing with you on a monthly or quarterly basis. Because as you go through this, then you take out another 1,300 vendors, only 742 of those, you keep going down, had a return larger than $10. Well, then you keep going, 184 of them had remitted more than $100. 35 vendors actually remitted more than $1,000, and this is in 1 month. So now you start to become, going back to the previous presentation that was done by Kallie, these are starting to be, our local businesses that we want to really, really watch and make sure we're supporting. And your top 5 vendors are remitting more than $10,000. And so those top 10 that I'm talking about, they remit almost 53% of our total collections. So I think that is, as we start going through and trying to bring this information to you in a way that is not disclosing something that we shouldn't be sharing, but also giving us a useful information. And I also think that it would be helpful, and I shared this with Patty, as I'd like to start looking at our downtown businesses, and because that really does define, post-COVID, who are we? What does it look like if we want to go downtown after work and and do a little shopping or stop for a little bite to eat after work? So to make sure that those businesses are doing well as well. So we will definitely watch those. The other piece, I think that this is really important. It does make a difference to shop locally. 53% those 10 businesses, 53% of the funds that we support our general fund with. On our next slide. The second thing, piece that I want to talk about is property tax. That is the second largest source of revenue. And during our budget cycle, we heard a lot about this, and people were like, you know, is it too much, or should we not collect it, or how does this work? So I wanted to run through your property tax really comes from a county level. And so your mill levies are what we certify to them. And currently, how this changed in about, I think it was 1984, but currently assessed property values are calculated using 7.15% for residential. And then anything else, they just have another category and it's non-residential. So it's predominantly your commercial properties. And these numbers are determined by the state. And so for the town of Wellington, we certified 13.14 2 mills for 2021 moving forward. 12.4 of those will be in your general fund. And then we did have a little bit of debt service that was general obligation bonds that was in the water department. Next slide, we'll go. So as we run through a sample calculation for a homeowner, I wanted to do this one just so if we have anybody, you know, that's watching, or when people, you know, they think that they pay a lot. And I would encourage, and I believe it's in March, but the assessor, the Larimer County assessor is going to come. But if you take your valuation times your assessment and then the mill rate, so I just ran through a sample below, $300,000 home. We multiply that times 7.15%, which is our residential rate. That would give you an assessed value of $21,450. And then you take your assessed value, you times it to the mills that the town of Wellington certified. And so the person that's living in a home that's $300,000 is paying about $281.90 to the town. And how we're using that is $15.08 of that is going towards the debt service for the water, and $266 of that is going towards the general fund. And so I think sometimes people think that their property tax, it may feel like a large piece, but moving forward, I wanted to put that $15 out there so that folks, I know we have had lots of discussions, and I've had lots of discussions with people who have come into town hall and see the water rate or the water bill increase. And they're concerned that they're already contributing through their property tax. They are, and the two small pieces of debt that are remaining that we talked about during the budget cycle, that $15 will fall off in the next 2 years as we're done. And so moving forward, as we go in, starting into 2021, what the last pieces that I want to watch is the information to share with you on a quarterly basis is not just, your treasurer's report, which is comparing, and you can, I'll look at that and analyze it. But I think the 2021 factors that we want to watch are our sales tax, certainly. And I want to bring that information to you again. I think it's going to be the top 10 if we can figure out another way where we're not disclosing something that we shouldn't be, and that is meaningful to you. I think that that's helpful as we move through. We'll also continue to look at these numbers. I don't know what consumer behavior is going to be post-COVID. Certainly, I think there's going to be a short period where people have had cabin fever and they're going to be, I need them all. I have to try on those jeans, or I have to do something. I also wonder, is there going to be that convenience factor that we've all gotten used to where, your dog food is delivered, that you don't have to go out. And so we don't really know, post-consumer behavior, and particularly many of us live here because we love the outdoors. Is this going to be a convenience that we see that will continue? And so maybe some of those deliveries, and 11% of that is 11% e-commerce. There's maybe that some of that's going to be there because we now realize that gives us time to go for that bike ride after work. I think we don't know. And so we're going to continue to watch that, but I also want to be very cognitive that we do not falsely budget on top of a number that we don't know if it's going to be sustainable. And so we also don't know what the impacts of this election are going to bring. And we have to watch, our energy and what this means to, are we going to have some people that are losing their jobs? I know that they've had some talk of converting some of the refineries. And so I think we just have to really be cognitive of what we see and when it's coming in, and making sure that you, as the trustees and the mayor, you have that information so that when we hit budget, we're not having an aha or a sudden moment that we're like, oh dear, I wish we would have known this 6 months ago. So I think it's really important that we just kind of keep an eye on these things. The other impact that we really, we're going to have to just be very cognitive of is we have limited those building permits to 100. And so that's 100 tap fees in the water fund and the sewer fund, but also for us this year, we had originally budgeted $575,000 in use tax that came in at about $785,000. So it was a very big bump for us. We're not going to see that again, and we're not going to see that for the next 3 years. So again, we just want to know what we're budgeting on top of and making sure that we have something that we know that is sustainable and that it is something that we can count on. What we don't want to do is, come in first quarter and say, oh, we're not meeting our revenue projections. Second quarter say, oh dear, this isn't happening. So I ran the numbers, and if we did those same $300,000, 100 homes, and Cody shared with me it's about 50-50. So what they do is they take 50% of the value of the home when you come in and you get a building permit, and that's how the use tax is calculated. So we don't know what those homes are going to be worth, but if we use that same $300,000, that revenue line item would be $450,000. So that's almost, it's not quite half, but compared to this year, it is significantly less. So again, as we move through 2021, looking at these things each and every month and making sure that when we start getting into the budget cycle that we have sustainable numbers and we know what we're budgeting on. And the last piece on that was we don't know what's going to happen on our tap fees, and we also want to make sure that we haven't over obligated ourselves, because we have to pay for our sewer plant and we have to pay for our water plant. So I think those are pieces that in the past we have used for some of our other capital items. So we'll continue to bring this information to you, but as we close up 2020, certainly Tyler and I have some work to do. It will be more tweaking, making sure we have things that are, in the right month, and if, adjustments need to be made, and, just looking for anything before our auditors get here. But our numbers for 2020, we will wrap this up, and this is where we sit. And so the next moving forward, I'd like to bring this kind of information to us on a quarterly basis and make sure that it is more of a meaningful and it has some content to it, instead of just looking and saying we're higher or lower. If we're higher or lower, what does that mean? And if we're higher and lower, certainly in the sales tax department, that means a lot more than we're higher or lower on the fines. So I will leave you with that. If you have questions, maybe email me or share them with Patty, and I'll make sure and get any information that would be helpful back out to the group as a whole.
Well, Judy, thank you for the report. That's good news for 2020. And as you requested, board members, if you have more finite questions, please email those as soon as possible. Get them over to Patty and Judy so we can get an answer back to you. But 2020 looks pretty good, and we'll just have to prepare ourselves for 2021. Thank you, Judy. Best to you and your family.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
You bet. Thank you.
And thank you very much,
Okay.
Judy. I really appreciate the level of detail that you went into in preparing this is a lot of really great information. I think incredibly helpful for me as a trustee to look at this and have a better understanding, not just of where we are now, but where we're headed and what things to watch. So this is very good information, and I'm exceedingly glad to see that you're bringing to us, because I think it's going to help make us better at our job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Move on, item C, consent agenda, minutes from the January 12th, 2021 regular board meeting. Any issues with the meeting minutes that we need to know about? Okay, that being said, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 12th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Jerome,
yes,
trustee Kenny,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond,
Yes. All right, action items, D, first one, D1, it's EPA mandated risk and resilience assessment and the emergency response plan, the contract award. This is going to be talked about Public Works Director. Is that Bob? Are you on?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and trustees. I'm going to start this off and give a little bit of background. Then I'm going to introduce our new engineer, Alex Evonitz. This project was started a few months ago. Dave Myers kind of been carrying the load on this. As we all know, Dave is an extremely busy person. Alex was available and qualified to take this over. So Alex is going to manage this project moving forward, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity to introduce Alex to you. Alex has got, I'm not going to throw a number out there, but several decades of very broad and high quality civil engineering experience. Started his career here in the Front Range, has worked on the East Coast in Niagara Falls for the utility department out there, has been on the West Slope for quite some time, working in a couple of communities out there and also with the private sector. So we're thrilled to have Alex on board, and he's going to make our great engineering group even better and certainly allow us to do more things. So with that, I will turn it over to Alex.
Yeah, Bob, hey, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to present. This is a project that was initially identified by the EPA back in the middle of 19. And as things went forward, obviously, 2020 was really not the best year to try and coordinate any kind of projects. And as a consequence, got a little bit delayed. Currently, we had gone out to do just a verbal proposal request from 4 different firms. They've been taking that initiative because the timing requirement, if you notice on the summary, the project has to be completed by June 30th of this year. So we were significantly pressed by time, and thus going through what would be a normal proposal program would have substantially delayed our ability to get someone on board and working toward the project. We're excited about the proposals that we did get. They came from JUB Engineering and from Jacobs. I understand that there's been some concern about the amount of work that Jacobs has been involved with the town, and I understand that. I must say, though, after an internal meeting with staff, it was clear that Jacobs had a far superior proposal to JUB Engineering. One of the things that I think really stood out was the familiarity that they have with our infrastructure, both with our plants, water treatment plant, distribution system, reservoir, raw water source. There was a lot of information to try and bring another firm up to speed with. So that was one of the driving forces. In addition to that, they had a resume pool and people available that were honestly head and shoulders above the other participant that submitted a proposal. The other participant was a little bit lower in price, not substantially. They came in about $79,000. And if you look at the proposal, actually, it comes in two phases. We've got the first part of the risk and resilience that is due June 30th. And then we have a slight delay to be able to get the emergency response plan together to the end of the year. We've got commitments from Jacobs that they can meet those timelines. They'll be looking at the security of our raw water source, water quality. Obviously, with the fires up on Cameron, there could be an issue with runoff and quality of the water that we are getting. Looking at our hardware and software. Are we protected from a software basis to make sure that someone can't get in and, what do you want to say, infiltrate our operational software? I don't think it's a big concern, but it certainly is a concern. I've seen that in the past. As well as distribution. We've got, especially in the old part of town, we've got some issues with, I wouldn't say reliability necessarily, but obviously from an operational standpoint, it's an old distribution system. Piping, valves, things of that nature over time can be a problem. So those are all going to be bits and pieces of this program going forward. I think the selection was a good one. And as a department, Public Works is going ahead and recommending that we execute that contract with Jacobs for $98,000. And I don't remember what the exact, $98,643. I am open to any questions anyone may have.
Okay, first of all, Alex, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Look forward to your, assistance with our team efforts and everything on this whole endeavor. I'm a fan of Jacobs anyway, because they are involved with all of our infrastructure at this point right now. I can't imagine trying to, without a big discrepancy, trying to take a risk on something else. That being said, any questions from board members on this issue right now?
So I did have a couple of questions. I know it was spelled out that this was, we're obligated to complete this by the EPA in regards to the study. So just because I don't have an understanding, I think this was done back in 2020 or 2019, but so we're required to do this or else what? Are they shutting down the water plant or what is, I'm not sure exactly what's driving us for being required to do this.
Yeah, honestly, Trustee Gator, I'm not sure that there is a penalty associated with it. There may very well be fines. Very often EPA is real big on fines. And the way that they did this is they tiered it depending on population. So needless to say, I think the bottom tier is between like 3,000 and 10,000. So we fall into that category. It's 13 or 15,000, I don't remember what the number is off the top of my head now.
Okay.
But so we do have some flexibility there. And again, I'm assuming it would be a fine and you probably get warned, but obviously we want to stay in compliance. We don't want to bring the wrath of the EPA anywhere near town.
Excellent. And then the other question I had is, do you remember what the amount for the other contract was? You said it was a little bit lower. Do you remember?
78,000.
78,000?
Yeah, it was roughly 79,000. It was 78,500, 78,600, something like that.
Okay. And then, I mean, that's a fairly, both of them are under the budget amount, which is great, but
yes.
What would you say drove, because that's a fairly significant change. I mean, it's about a 20% difference in costs there between the two contracts.
No, I understand. And honestly, Trustee, I think one of the biggest issues is staff time as well. Trying to bring another firm up to speed with their current systems, raw water input, distribution, plant function, software. Obviously, we're in the process of doing the rehabilitation or restoration to the water treatment plant with an expansion. Those are things that to try and bring in another consultant would be, I wouldn't say monumental, but it would be a significant effort of staff time to be able to get those folks up to speed. And then sometimes the two consultants may not have the best interests in mind working as a team. I'd like to think that they do as an engineer, but sometimes it is still business.
I'd like to point out, but I'd like to point out too, and actually a question first and then point out, because I think I know the answer. Bob, JUB was on the Nano, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay, so Trustee Gator, you may or may not remember what happened with the nano plant, but it came in very late and very over budget. And JUB, I think, was the prime driver or prime cause of both of those problems we have. So, I mean, if I would not even agree to JUB being the engineer on this project, knowing their history with working with the town. So
Thank
that's
you,
probably
Trustee
why they're
Jerome.
less.
Yeah.
That's probably
That's some
why they're less
information I wasn't aware
expensive, because they'll get you in the back end.
No, and that's good. And I appreciate the information. And I want to make it clear. From what I understand, Jacobs has done a great job, and I think that's fantastic. And I agree with you. It makes sense to continue to work with that. I want to be careful. Again, I was not involved in, but I think a lot of how we got to where we are today came from the fact that we had one company that pretty much did everything, and then it became a problem. And so we're where we are today. So I want to just make sure that we are doing our due diligence of making sure, one, that it's not something people have the impression that, well, Jacobs just gets everything that Wellington does, because then we may not end up with quality people even bidding on the projects, because they're like, well, they're just going to give it to Jacobs, so why should we even bother? So I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, and if Jacobs is the best person to work with, they're doing a great job. Fantastic. We'll keep working with them. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping that open so we don't ever wind up where we got to this last few years.
Yeah, Trustee Gator, along that same line, Bob and I have talked about that a little bit, and we're certainly sensitive to that going forward. This was one of those projects that, from a timeline standpoint, from a familiarity standpoint, from a staff resource standpoint, it was a prudent choice.
Sure. Nope. And that's good. And I appreciate Trustee Jerome sharing the information that we've had poor experiences
Yes.
with. I have no problem working with Jacobs on a project. I just want to make sure that we're just doing our due diligence. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Alex, you alluded to something that's stuck in my mind that I want to bring up real quick, and I don't want to spend too much time on it.
Sure.
Runoff.
Yes,
Okay, major fires up the Poudre Canyon this year.
correct.
With that comes a lot of silt, mud, and all that, right?
Yes.
Is that what this emergency response plan is all about?
It's a combination of that as well as our operational programs. If we have line breaks, if we have failures, if we have software issues in terms of plant operation, if there are chemical feed issues, if we have distribution issues, like I say, valve issues, and I came from the town of Hayden, and we had 6 major water line breaks in 12 months. And it turns out we had a valve that we didn't know was an issue. So those are the kind of things we'll be looking at, the system as a whole and what our exposure is. And the nice thing is, one of the things that Jacobs is going to do is they're going to do their best to assign a cost to some of those risks. And then from that, we can go ahead and prioritize where our greatest exposure is, not only with the ability to provide, but also the cost associated with that risk.
Okay, are we going to be in position to deal with that kind of dirty water, if you might want to call it that way, coming down?
Well, and I've got to be honest with you, Mayor, I that's not a question that I'm really in the position to answer at this point.
Okay.
I don't know, Bob, you may want to pick up on that one.
Yeah, I could address that a little bit, Mayor. We have talked to, obviously, most of our water comes from the North Poudre Irrigation Company system, with the remainder coming from groundwater wells, which has built-in filters. So we have talked to Tad about this a few times, and we're kind of blessed by the length and very shallow slope of the delivery system. So they did go back in there, I think he said 3 or 4 years ago, and pulled out a couple of inches of blackish sediment from the bottom. But a lot of that stuff falls out on its way to Reservoir 3, which also functions as a giant sedimentation basin. So we do feel like we're a lot more buffered from other utilities that pull directly from the river, such as Fort Collins. I will also say that Fort Collins pulls a lot of water from the North Poudre system. and they've worked with MPIC to install a turbidimeter, a couple of monitoring station down at the river. So we have access to that data as well. And the bottom line is that the kind of the turnovers that we experience in that reservoir create far more turbidity and treatment challenges than we're likely to see from the runoff. But we're going to keep talking to Tad. We're going to kind of look at this in a broader sense through the study that Alex has presented to you this evening, and continue to try and make sure we're prepared for that.
Okay, so we don't want it to sneak up on us.
No, it's not going to sneak up on us. And we've had fire events before. One thing I could have mentioned that I forgot was that North Poudre also has a plan to draw from the North Fork, which was largely unaffected by the fire, in extreme events. If it gets especially nasty down there in the Poudre, they have some other options for delivering water to their
All right.
customers.
Anyone else?
I had one other question, just because it's something I hadn't seen before. And normally we seek, we're approving things with a not to exceed. And this one, it just says current not to exceed. So is that expected to change, or could you fill us in on that?
No, it's just semantics, honestly. Trustee, I understand the question. Yeah, it is truly a not to exceed contract.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you,
Again,
gentlemen.
thank you all. Appreciate it, and look forward to meeting
Hold
you
on.
at some point face to face.
We're gonna turn it over to the public for a little bit, Alex. Don't go anywhere.
Sure.
All right. We'll turn it over to the public for comment, Crystal.
Mr. Mayor, we have Kathy Widelis. If you would state your name and address for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Kathy Widelis, 3405 Revere Court in Wellington. And I had a couple questions. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, because sometimes some of the what I'm hearing was a little bit garbled, but my question is, well, one, does resilience in this case mean recovering from some sort of disaster or problem? Because I've heard resilience used sometimes in context with climate change stuff, and it's pretty foggy. So that's just is that how, Alex, is that how you guys are looking at resilience?
Yes, from a big picture, resilience is all, and again, it's difficult to define, but it's everything associated with delivering a quality drinking water product to the town. And as I mentioned before, that comes from evaluation of drought, evaluation of flooding, evaluation of raw water quality, of our ability to filter water and provide an adequate volume for not only consumption, but for fire protection as well. One step further would be to actually look at our software systems to make sure that they can't in some way be encrypted where we would not be able to function. That's very unlikely, but of course, this day and age, those are things that still have to be assessed and evaluated. So resilience is really all encompassing. And that's, I think, one of the reasons with the world as it is that the EPA is requiring us to follow up.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. My husband and I visited the water treatment plant when we first moved here. It's the supervisor was somebody who's no longer with the town, but we asked him, what if there's a power outage due to a snowstorm or EMP, and now with Larimer County and the Rawhide plant going to go offline 16 years earlier than they need to, so like in the next 9 years, we might end up with some California issues like rolling brownouts and blackouts. The other supervisor of the water treatment plant said, oh yeah, if we get a power outage, we're going to borrow a generator from Fort Collins. And is that another thing you guys are looking at? And has Wellington in the past 7 years bought a generator of our own to keep our own water plant going?
Ms.
Excellent
White,
question. Yeah, go ahead, Bob, if you like.
I might answer that for Alex because he wasn't here when this happened.
Yeah.
We did buy two generators recently this past year and are working on the manual transfer switches for that right now with our electrician. Those generators are sized to provide power to the main plant and the raw water pump station for the main plant, and also the nano filtration building and its raw water pump station, which are the Wilson wells. So we have two nice new generators, and so we're much better prepared now than we were 4 or 5 years ago, or whenever you had that conversation.
Thanks very much. How long does this certification last? That's my last question.
It's a 5-year annual review.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Great question.
Good answers. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, we have no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, bring it back to the board. Board members, no further questions. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the contract for the risk and resilience assessment and emergency response plan with Jacobs.
In the amount not to exceed $98,634.
I move that we approve the, oh boy, if I can get this right here. 1 second. So I move that we approve the EPA mandated risk and resilience assessment and emergency response contract to Jacobs Engineering in the not to exceed amount, bear with me 1 second here. Make sure I have the right number here. In the not to exceed amount of $98,643.
I have a question real quick. Didn't Wyatt make the motion?
I just added to it.
Oh, you added to it. Okay, I'm sorry. Then I second Trustee Gator's motion.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
Trustee Jerome,
Yes.
Trustee Kenny,
Yes.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Alex. Look forward to seeing you out there.
Hey, thank you for your trust.
Yeah, keep it up. Let us know what we can do, okay? Appreciate
Certainly.
what you guys do.
Welcome out.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item D2, resolution number 03-2021. It's a resolution extending the conditions of the approval of the Poudre School District annexation. Cody Bird's going to talk about it.
Good evening, Mayor, and thank you. Cody Bird, Planning Director. This is a pretty quick agenda item. At least it's a pretty short report. What we're presenting is a resolution that would extend the conditions of approval for the Poudre School District annexation. The background here was that the annexation for the school districts, the new high school, middle school site, was approved in January of 2020. And as many of you who were on the board might recall, we went through a pretty lengthy negotiation process with the school district to resolve some pretty complicated matters around water and roads. And so the town actually entered into the annexation and development agreements with the school district in October of 2020. And the original ordinance adopted in January had set a 180-day time frame to complete those agreements. It's a pretty typical time frame that we use for land use processes. But obviously, because of the extended conversations around some complicated matters, that 180-day time frame was not met. Staff believes it's in the best interest of the town, our community, our residents, and the school district to extend the ordinance conditions to allow us to get the final documents recorded. We do have to record the annexation map, the development agreement, the annexation agreement, the supporting materials that was a part of that approval process. Town staff is still waiting on the school district to get the final documents printed and executed by all the appropriate parties. And once we have those, we would record them with the county clerk and recorder's office. What this draft resolution in your packet does is extend the time frame to July 15th of 2021 to allow adequate time to get these final things completed and to preserve the annexation of the school property. I would be happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Have board members any questions for Cody on this? Okay, Chris, open up to the public, please.
Mayor Hammond, I see no hands raised at this time.
All right, then we'll bring it back to the board. That being said, can I get a motion to approve the resolution 03-2021? It's extending the conditions of the approval of the Poudre School District Annexation Agreement.
So moved.
Yeah, get that one figured out. Take a roll
Second.
call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Jerome,
Yes.
trustee Kenny,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. All right, D3, in-person Board of Trustees meetings. Patty.
Hi, everyone. So staff has been working on getting the Leaper Center prepared for in-person or hybrid meetings for the Board of Trustees. We, as with any AV issue or changes, there's always things that happen that we're not prepared for, which is why we started planning several weeks ahead of time to get that ready. So we'll be doing yet another run through on Monday. We are very confident that we will have the board chambers prepared and ready for in-person or hybrid type meetings, the first meeting in February. One of the things we're running up against is how to seat the Board of Trustees that want to attend in person. The microphones are stationary and can't be moved. And we are still required to have that 6-foot distancing. So I'm not quite sure how to handle it. We probably have room. We're going to go out and measure it tomorrow to confirm, but we're guessing we can have between 4 and 5 trustees at a time. We can talk about, or you all can talk about how that might look. I'm not sure who all would want to be in person, or who has that very strong desire to be in person and who still wants to be remote. And maybe that's part of that discussion. A couple of the other things that we've talked about as far as staff is, the mask requirements, 6-foot distancing requirements, disinfecting the podium before and after, the public or a staff person would, be at the podium. How do we enforce the wearing of masks? How do we enforce the 6-foot distance requirement? We can put out places in the chambers, put X's on spots, but knowing that there will be potentially a couple or 3 people from the same household that comes in, they can all sit together. So we need to be able to provide that opportunity as well. One of the other things that we've talked about is the number of positive cases in Wellington over the past 22, 23 days. There has been an increase of 129 cases and 2 deaths within the past since January 1. So, there are still cases increasing. Staff is ready to support the Board of Trustees if they want to move forward and be in person. We have staff people that are willing to be there and able to be there, knowing that some staff will probably still be joining virtually until the pandemic has been ended or reduced, or the vaccinations come through like they're supposed to. So that's what I have for you. And it's willing to answer questions, or if you all want to discuss amongst yourselves your thoughts about going hybrid, or how you would envision that and what you would need from us in order to make that happen.
Well, real quick, Patty, will Lamar County have the detention center? Will Lamar County Sheriff's Office have a presence at the meeting physically?
I have not asked them that. And I don't know if Mike is on the call tonight or not. Usually he is.
Mike, are you there?
I am here. Sorry about that.
Would you be
Yes.
opposed or what?
No, I would be there at the meetings.
Okay.
Okay.
Board members, you want to talk about it? What do you think?
Well,
Go for it. Let's get in person.
okay. Well, I just had a question regarding the stationary mics. I mean, there's these guys you can pick up. It's all USB. I don't know if you're still using the same old mixing board that has the RCA jacks or whether you've upgraded the technology for that, but certainly these things are out there and they're not particularly expensive. I think trying to shuffle a microphone back and forth between several, unless you've got something that does ambient and would pick up other people, probably for an effective communication, you probably might need to look at something like that. And I don't, obviously the AV people probably could give you some direction regarding that. It's just my thought.
Sure. Well, some of the issue and part of the reason why they are stationary and grounded is in order to use the Zoom platform and get it through YouTube so our public can view and still participate. And that's what I've understood. I mean, we're trying to create this environment where you're going to be in person. There's going to be some trustees that will be remote. Everybody still needs to be able to participate and vote and see each other and see the presentations. And so I think there's a lot of moving pieces, and Crystal's on, so maybe she can provide more information. She's been the direct contact and working with Excite Audio Video to make this happen. So potentially she has some more information.
Yeah, so Excite Audio was on site and they set up the microphones in a new amplifier system. So the audio was a lot clearer in the board chambers and clearer to be able to stream over Zoom and through YouTube. So just budgetary requirements, we got what we were able to do at that point. So the microphones are stationary, they won't be moving around. And we don't have, I believe we might have a wireless microphone, but that's something I'll need to double check on as well.
Other
So we
comments?
were trying to provide that what the city council was going to desire after COVID, which was, we were told that, the audio was poor, that the video was poor, and, people couldn't hear and they couldn't understand and they couldn't see. So we were trying to create that environment, and if we need to try to go back and try to find a different way to provide more mics or something like that, then, we can do that. We have a couple weeks. I just don't know what will be able to be heard through Zoom and YouTube if we go that direction. There's
Anyone
just a
else?
lot of pieces.
I think it would be good for us to go back to in person, or at least a hybrid. That's fine if we want to mix it up. So we have some people in person, some people can attend remote if they prefer. I think that's fine. I think giving the public the option to be able to attend in person. I think that they're having people that they love having it on Zoom platform. They're able to tune in, whether they're on the road or whatever, which is, I think, great to keep that going. But I do think it would be good for us to reopen things to go back to in person, because there are a lot of people that would like to have that. And I know back when we this all first started, we'd set the chairs up 6 feet apart before the meetings. That worked well. People, public that came to the meetings, they understood why it was being done. They just went and sat in the chairs. So I don't think we would see much of a problem with that as well if we can even just do something like that again, and that would deal with the 6 foot social distancing.
Other thoughts?
Well, there's one comment. I think the last time we had it set up, and I may be wrong, I don't think we're going to be using the senior center side, correct? We're down back to, are we just back now to the chamber side of that multi-purpose room?
Crystal, how does the AV work back there? Were they able to hear?
The AV system is just set up in the board chambers, so it would not include the senior center side.
Okay.
So there's definitely some, you're talking, well, at least half the space of what we had prior. So there's a realization that we might need to, well, again, I think people have done some great work, and we can sort it out. It can be sorted out.
Manage it. You have to manage that.
Yep.
Trustee Kim.
Did you say Kenny?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I'm in favor of doing hybrid meetings so long as we always protect the right for people to attend online. The feedback I've gotten is that families, which represent the majority of the population in Wellington, young families, 30s with young children, are able to participate in our meetings now and never were able to before. So it is important that the largest population of our community can actively and conveniently participate in our meetings forever, in my mind. So I do want to put that out there. I'm fine with hybrid meetings, but I do not want to force anyone, staff, community member, trustee, or otherwise, to have to attend in person. So that's my big sticking point. If you're willing to and want to have that responsibility, which I think everyone should, you should be able to do that. If you choose not to, we must offer and protect that right as well.
Other thoughts? Okay, it sounds like something we're probably gonna have to wade into and manage. All right,
Yep.
especially with the numbers of the public as they come in and go.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
and
I can send out a couple ideas through email and you guys can just comment back to me.
But I think that I'm in favor of going back. Let's get it going. And we'll take care of anyone who doesn't feel comfortable with it, so they can be fully participation. And I think we can pull it off, and we just see how it goes. Doesn't go, we can always go back.
Yeah, the first meeting or two might be interesting, but
Yeah.
just hang in there with us. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. It can't be any worse than when we started the online meetings with Facebook. So I can't imagine.
I appreciate all the work you guys done to test this and figure it out. I know it's not a task, so thank you.
It's been a year, so it's going to be interesting to see how you all do back in that area. All right, let's go ahead and open up to the public for their comment. Crystal.
Mayor Hammond, I have Teets. If you would state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi there, Sherelle Teets, 4525 Ingalls Drive. I just want to say thank you for everyone that has been pushing to move to the in-person meetings. I also appreciate that I have littles at home that I chase around too. So I know I probably won't always be able to attend in person, but it's nice to have that option when I do have time available. The other thing that also I've noticed a lot of churches and other businesses around is RSVPing for seats. So I know they mentioned if you have a family coming, there's an Evite that gets sent out, say for church, where you can actually sign up to the board meeting itself or to church service. If you have 3 coming, that might help you with your seating and alleviate issues later on if you've got people that are RSVPing ahead of time. That's just my idea, and I want to say thank you for pushing to get back to some kind of normalcy.
Good point, Sherelle. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Yes, Mayor, we have Kathy Widelis. If you can state your name and address for the record, you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Kathy Widelis, 3405 Revere Court, Wellington. I just want to express my appreciation too. I think we should open up. I think we should open up everything, but I'm glad Wellington's. I think it's a good start for the Board of Trustees to do this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have Jenna and Mike Clark. If you can state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, this is Michael Clark, and we live over in Sage Meadows on the west side. And I just wanted to say thanks for looking into the ways that we can open things up and you know, to repeat what Kathy just said, getting us back to some form of normalcy. And I just love the idea of doing the hybrid because I do fall into the category of 30 somethings with small kids We have 4 of our own. And so for both my wife and I to attend could be difficult, but we like to have the option. And I like to know that if I stay home and she goes, or vice versa, that that the other one will also get to tune in virtually. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and you'll have our patience if things don't go 100% awesome the first time. We'll hang in there with you, and hope to see you work through it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, we have no other hands raised at this time.
Bring it back to the board. Okay. Let's take a vote. Can I get a motion to approve the in-person board meetings in a hybrid fashion that we can work out, that's amenable to the public and the board, and make it work, see what happens?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
Trustee Jerome,
Yes.
Trustee Kenny,
Yes.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay, we're coming back. Leave your pajamas at home. All right, we're done with action items tonight. Reports. Number 1, town attorney, anything new?
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, we did get a request filed by the proponents on both marijuana actions to extend the deadline for them to file their briefs for 90 days, which gets us to the end of April. We did not oppose that motion. So we're set out for a while. We haven't heard anything further. Nothing else.
All right. So we're not going to hear anything on this issue for 90 days. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, hopefully we will hear something back from them relative to the proposal of referring the matter to the voters. But obviously this has been extended repeatedly, and I can't tell you when they're going to get back to us.
All right, so the ball's in their court.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Court date has been set, right?
Just a review date, and it's a motion on their part. The court has not yet accepted that motion. It's just been filed by them.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
Why would we do that? Why wouldn't we say, no, let's get it together and get your stuff ready and let's go 30 days?
From a practical standpoint, what I think the board was feeling was, or what I was recommending the board, was that to the degree that as this inches closer to November, we avoid an election and the cost of an election. It affords us the ability, if we go to court, to save the money relative to the costs associated with litigation, which seems to make some sense. And finally, we can get to potentially a workable result, as opposed to even if we prevail in court, we're going to see another referendum filed, which will again extend the costs associated with this matter.
All right. Okay. Town administrator. Patty?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute and having a hard time there, struggles. So it's been almost 2 months now. I've spent all day today going through all my notes that I've been taking with you all over the last 2 months, essentially. And I have a list of, I owe several of you emails and phone calls, so I'm going to catch up. I've got a great list of what I need to catch up on tomorrow, so I can get caught up with all of you on the things that I am backlogged on. And I do apologize for that. It's been a crazy 2 months, but I feel like I've got my sea legs now, and I know how things are working. I've spent a lot of time on some things that a town administrator would normally, such as going to all the meetings for the Harrison House. And now I feel like I've got a pretty good foundation and understanding of what's happening with that project. So I'm not having to attend every single meeting for that, and allowing staff to be the representation for the town. And then they report back and let me know how things go. So things like that are starting to happen. Cheryl Trent will be reaching out to all of you to schedule that second I don't think it was strategic planning, or maybe it was a strategic planning session, but to meet with with the Board of Trustees for about a 4-hour period to, go over the rules that you guys had set up with each other, keep moving forward on that process, and probably go through the strategic plan a little bit. So she will be reaching out to all of you to try to find a date that works for everyone. And if staff can attend, great. We'll kind of see how that rolls and what date you guys end up with for that. But I wanted to give you a heads up that she will be contacting you. And that is all I have, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Patty real quick? Okay, I think you're catching on, Patty. You're getting your head around all the issues. It takes time.
Yes, it does. Thank you for your patience.
You bet. Staff, anything from the staff real quick? All right then. Board members, anything you want to bring up?
Yes, I do, Mayor. So I had the opportunity to attend a county meeting last week, and just to see how they had addressed and handled public comment. So I just wanted to say to our board and to our staff, I am very appreciative of how well we do at listening to public comment, on managing that, on welcoming that, on really engaging with the members of the public. And sitting in that meeting, the way that the public was engaged was very demeaning and almost dismissive. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that. That is not what that is. Our staff really does a great job. The board, the mayor, you guys do a great job of really engaging with public, taking their thoughts and concerns seriously. So as something that's I'm particularly sensitive to, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that we've been doing on that. And then also from a staff level, I know we've had a lot of things going back and forth with members of the community where they're asking questions and trying to get information. And I just appreciate the work that you guys are doing to try and get those answers back. And would just ask to members of the community as well, just understanding, having dealt with other municipalities and government entities, our staff is really working hard to try and help you guys and get information to you. So just try to keep that in mind when you're asking questions and things like that. Be patient with our staff. They are trying to work really hard to get information back to you guys and do a good job. But they also do keep in mind, we've got a lot of things going on with water plants and things. So they're trying to manage their full-time jobs as well. So just appreciate your patience with our staff as well. So just wanted to say a thank you to everybody for the work that we're putting in.
Other board members want to bring anything up? Okay, Trustee Gator, thank you for the feedback on how well we're doing. I think we're advancing. I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and be done with our items tonight. And we got an executive session night. Item F, Brad, do you want to take us into executive session?
Mr. March, you're on mute.
Can't hear you, Brad.
There we go. Sorry about that. We'd be going into executive session pursuant to CRS 246402 for F1 as set forth in the agenda. It would be for the purpose of evaluating the town attorney, who is an officer of the town, an appointee. The meeting will be recorded and the recording will be saved for 90 days. Which, as according to my calculations, would be through April 21st, 2021. You need a super majority to go into executive session. And as an aside, I would also suggest that the town attorney consents to this being an executive session.
Did we get one motion?
I moved it.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
Trustee Jerome,
Yes.
Trustee Kenny,
Yes.
Trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay, see
So-
you all later. Thank you very much. Does anybody need a quick couple-minute recess?
Are you asking for 5, Trustee Jerome?
Please.
You want 5, 3, or 5?
5.
Okay, take 5. Take 5. See you back here in 5.
For attendees in the meeting, if you can leave the meeting, this will be an executive session.
And if we